Good morning. This is Polaris-Live, and I am Sarwar Kashmeri. This is the program that looks at the tremendous growth of China on global affairs, business, geopolitics, and academic through the eyes of experts from around the world. My guest today, it gives me great pleasure to say my guest today, is Mr. Francesco Stanislao Parisi. He, since 1976, has been the CEO of the Francesco Parisi Group in Trieste, Italy, which has been in business in Trieste for over 213 years. Mr. Parisi was born in Milan, Italy. In 1976, he earned a Doctor of Law at the University of Milan. To help prepare for taking over the helm of his company, his family company, he practiced freight forwarding in local Parisi Group companies, a year in Vienna, 2 years in New York, and 3 years in Munich, Germany. Since then, 1976, he's been working full-time at the family firm. He is also, he serves and has served as the leader of numerous international maritime business groups. He's honorary consul of Sweden in Trieste. He's on a number of boards, including Trieste Savings Bank and the Trieste Bank of Banca Italia. He's a member of the Rotary Club and the Propeller Club in Trieste. And I can tell you from personal experience that what he doesn't know about maritime business and the advances in maritime shipping technology, you can put in a tiny needle and forget about it. So without further ado, let me bring on stage now Mr. Francesco Parisi. Mr. Parisi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. May I call you Sava? I have the privilege to.
Please, it would be a great honor to have you call me Sarwa. And may I call you Francesco?
Of course, of course. Okay. And good morning to you on that side of the Atlantic, and good afternoon, and to your guest on your side of the Atlantic, and good afternoon to the guest on my side of the Atlantic.
Well, thank you so much for that. This is a lightly snowing morning in Hanover, New Hampshire. You don't have any snow in Trieste, I take it.
Not yet, not yet, not yet.
Now listen, Francesco, it's just amazing. Your company is in business in Trieste for all of those years. And even though I wasn't born when your company was around, it certainly gives me a feeling for what a solid organization it is. What I would like for you, if you can, in a few words, explain is why has Trieste, over the 2 centuries, been such an important part of the shipping business, and why does it continue to be so? And of course, right now we are here to talk about the recent acquisition of interest in your company, ownership in your company by the Chinese firm and a German firm. So what is it about Trieste that makes it special in your business, Francesco?
Well, to make it short and simple, Trieste is at the very end of the Adriatic Sea, which is practically a canal which enters in the center of Europe. It is the most northern port in the Mediterranean Sea, and it was established over 300 years ago as a commercial port for the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, which Trieste was part of until the end of the Second World War. And you are right in saying it has had an important role, but the history of the last century made it actually a marginal port because of the events of the First and the Second World War. And I have also had the privilege to live in the past 3 decades when this strategic position has changed again. And the reason why that has changed is the falling of the Iron Curtain, I always like to remember that the term Iron Curtain was first used by Winston Churchill when he, in I think 1944, something like that, 43,
indeed.
he was saying, I see an iron curtain from Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic. So
I
Trieste
had forgotten that. I had forgotten that, actually. Yes.
Yes. So Trieste was the southern terminal of the Iron Curtain. And as you well know, the Iron Curtain has fallen apart 31 years ago, 1989. But even more important for Trieste was the fact that all surrounding, sometimes tiny countries, have all become gradually part of the European Union. And now they are part of a single market. And this has contributed to the development and the rebirth of Trieste as a port. There are other reasons that I can maybe explain if you wish, but these are the main reasons.
But is it, I mean, when I look at Trieste, and it's such a wonderful place to be in on the Adriatic, I also think about the German company HHLA. On their website, they point out that these large container ships, the 24,000 containers on a ship, which is hard to imagine, when they come from Shanghai to Hamburg, with their goods. That the price addition of transporting, let's say, one tablet, one iPad is 11 cents, right?
Yeah.
And so is it also correct that with Trieste, one doesn't have to make that long journey around Europe, that if there are direct railway connections, that Trieste makes it easier to transport to Central Eastern Europe?
Yes, you are perfectly right. And the other part of the story is that, as you well know, in the last 30 years, the growing trading parties are countries and regions in the Asia Pacific. And connecting Europe, you have to cross the Suez Canal. And when you want to go to the North Sea ports, you have to cross again Gibraltar and sail 5 days more than you sail to land and call Trieste. And again, the other issue is that those countries which were on the other side of the Iron Curtain, like Hungary, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, Poland, former Yugoslav countries like Slovenia and Croatia.
Right.
And the trade with these countries has grown more than the trade across the Atlantic. Okay. Can you hear me?
There's some difficulty in communications. You're coming on and off, but I can hear you now.
Can you hear me, Sarwar?
I can hear you, but it seems to be breaking a bit, Francesco.
Hear me, Sarwar?
I can hear you. Now I can hear you. Can you hear me? We are having some trouble on the line, Francesco.
I may call back again.
So we are having a bit of difficulty. Mr. Parisi will call me back again, and we'll just take on the conversation from where we stopped. Now, can you hear me?
I lost you for a while. Sorry. I don't know.
Okay. I was just explaining to our viewers that, technology is something like eating mangoes. Sometimes it's wonderful, sometimes it's not. But let's just continue on. What I wanted to ask you is Trieste. What kind of I mean, for Hamburg, for example, these giant container ships. Can Trieste handle these very large ships? And also, how do these new ships and so on? I want to explore the European Union's future competitive environment, but let me ask you about the big ships. Just a quick question here.
Yes, this is another advantage of the port of Trieste. It has natural draft over 18 meters, so the biggest vessels in the world can call the port of Trieste. And this is actually a little problem for Hamburg. You were mentioning Hamburg because you may know Hamburg is a river port, and they have always a problem of dredging the river to have the available draft, and they cannot accommodate the largest vessel.
Right.
But the real reason is that due to these geopolitical changes, the falling of the Iron Curtain, the entering into the European Union of all sorts of countries, and the growth of the trade with the Asia-Pacific region, this area, this port has become again very attractive. Also, you had mentioned that before, the good rail infrastructure connecting to the rest of the European rail network, underutilized until a few years ago, has allowed the growth, because a port is worth nothing if the connections to the hinterland, to the production and to the consumption is not efficient and well working.
So I imagine that this closeness to the rail, through the rail connections to eastern parts of Europe, perhaps even Turkey, this was of great interest to HHLA, the German firm, the Chinese firm. What I may ask you is, I know that you had these two firms who were dealing with you to acquire interest in the port, to buy ownership in the port. Was it strictly a business decision? And you can tell me if this is confidential and you don't wish to answer it. But did politics play any part in it? Was it strictly a business decision that the German company won this bid and not the Chinese? Because, you know, all of us who look at the BRI, look at the growth of China, which is what this program is all about, assume that when the Chinese come in, they have bags of money and it's like bidding against God. And if they want something, they get it. Strange to say bidding against God for a Chinese company, but what do you think? Was it strictly a business decision?
Yeah, listen, the company which attracted the interest is a commercial company with the shareholders. We are the relative majority shareholders.
Right.
And the interest which was shown by world multinational companies from China, from Germany, but also from other parts, was a pure commercial interest, an interest to participate and share a growing business. The range of the northeastern Adriatic, which is Trieste in Italy, Koper in Slovenia, and Rijeka in Croatia, is the range which has grown most in the last 10 years in Europe because of these geopolitical changes. And there has been a strong interest to participate.
Right.
And I can tell you that our decision was a purely business-driven decision. Purely business-driven. The change of ownership, the change of control of a company like ours, which has a concession of a port infrastructure, is, however, since 1.5 years, subject to a green light by the office of the Prime Minister.
This is an Italian law.
This is Italian law, but it is quite widespread throughout European, countries, and I don't know if it is the same in other parts of the world. A port terminal is considered strategic infrastructure.
Indeed.
And especially now during the COVID crisis, the Italian government, but I believe the same also for other European governments, have been concerned that companies might be weakened to the point that they could be taken over really for little.
Right.
And they wanted to make sure that the strategic companies, including a small company like this, which is managing a port terminal, would not fall into the hands of foreign control.
Indeed.
And this applies not only to non-Euro EU countries, to all countries. So we have to go through this process of authorization with the office of the Italian Prime Minister.
Right.
And it is called Golden Power, so is it called.
Okay.
And we have received very quickly green light from the office of the Prime Minister. To be honest, I don't know if it would have been that quick if the change of ownership would have brought a control by a Chinese company. I don't know it because I'm not so much deep in politics, but it was very fast with a German interest. I don't know how it would have been with a Chinese.
Now you've mentioned, and I'm broadening our optic here, Francesco, a little more strategically. You've mentioned that the German company being involved with your company in Trieste is also on the path that the European Union is encouraging, which is the creation of EU champions, European Union champions. What I want to ask you, broadening this optic a bit, is do you think strategically that the world is increasingly headed towards three big business geopolitical blocs, North America led by the United States, the European Union led perhaps, if I may say so, by Germany, France, and then Asia led by China. And the European Union, to find the negotiating space between America and China, the two big giants, needs to create European champions? I mean, do you think, first of all, that this idea of these three blocks now coming into existence, do you believe it yourself? And two, we need more, or Europe needs more European champions or EU champions to compete in that space? Yeah. I would love for you to try and answer that.
Yeah. You have mentioned the two giants, the US and China. And in Europe, we have felt a little bit squeezed between the two giants, you know.
Yeah.
There is, however, a growing idea among Europeans that we have to get closer together to be able to compete.
Yes.
And the idea of sorry, but I'm getting out of battery, so I have to put this.
Of course.
Now, the idea of European champions is a reality, and it has been affecting. Sorry, falling down.
It's okay.
In my head. It has been affecting recently some evaluation at high level that European antitrust should not prevent companies within Europe to merge. You know, the topic was very much touched when there was a plan to merge Siemens and Alstom, which are two giants, one German, one
Yes.
French,
Yes.
for the rail transport material
Right.
construction, you know.
Right.
And the antitrust, if I'm not mistaken, prevented that, saying that this could jeopardize competition in Europe. But people are starting to say the competition is not to be seen only within Europe. The competition has to be seen worldwide. And
Worldwide.
if Alstom
Sure.
and Siemens cannot join forces, then maybe the one will be taken over by a Chinese and the other will be taken over by an American company. So
But let me interrupt.
Europe weakens, you know.
Let me interrupt because I want to clarify that you do believe that increasingly the 21st century will have these three blocks that will grow.
Well, you know, population-wise and consumption-wise, Europe is not a marginal area. It's a very
Exactly.
big area. It's a very big area. So
Exactly.
probably the very big difference is that Europe is militarily not existing. So it is.
Right.
Europe, you know better than me, has been relying a lot on the NATO, and on the American
Yes.
military support. I hope military will not be needed, but that
Exactly.
is one element which makes a country or a region strong or not. Also economically, also as a. So this is the big difference. Europe is not existing militarily, and the European Union is not like the United States. It's different, you know.
I
It's much
understand.
bigger.
I understand. But from a business finance perspective, those three groupings make
Yes,
sense.
and yes, I think, and you know, I think the idea of our new shareholders, Hala from Hamburg, from Germany, is first of all to become not a company focused exclusively on one seaport, but creating a network,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And they are creating a European network. So now they are present on the North Sea, on the Baltic, on the Black Sea, and on the Mediterranean. So they are creating a network and creating a European champion, so to say.
And so two
So
more.
I hope Europe can play a role,
Okay.
also because it can allow a better understanding between also the other two
Right.
giants, you know.
Yes. So, but let me ask you, I have two more areas to investigate with you, Francesco. One is, what was it like to negotiate with a Chinese company? Can you talk about that at all? I mean, do they come prepared? Do they always have to go back and check with the Chinese government? Are they a nice, diverse group? I mean, I've been part of mergers and acquisition discussions in the U.S. and I know how it happens in Europe. But tell us a little bit, if you can.
Yeah. Okay. I think you have mentioned the company we were dealing in China is a very old established company.
Exactly.
Over 100 years from based partially in Hong Kong, you know.
Okay.
And we have been dealing with people and managers sitting in Hong Kong and Shenzhen. And the experience has been very interesting. I mean, they are very structured, they are very business oriented, and all the meetings we have had, they were prepared to the most to every detail. Every detail was prepared, and
right.
We have been meeting here. We have been meeting there. Because we were dragging a little bit too long the negotiations, and we had have started talking to the Germans.
Right.
I have to say that, of course, culture-wise, we feel much closer to the Germans. I mean, we have a European basic route which facilitates negotiation.
Yes.
I have enjoyed a lot negotiating with and discussing with friends from Hong Kong and Shenzhen.
Right.
It is easier to understand each other with the Germans. This is a fact, you know. We all speak not a mother tongue, because we all speak with the Germans or with the. I mean, I can speak German. I can speak German with the Germans, but we were speaking English because our group. I mean, English. We were speaking with the Germans and with the Chinese. So this is the common language nowadays, and it's all
of the world, the business world.
Not the mother tongue. For
Yes.
all of us, it's not the mother tongue. So it's.
Do you think, let me interrupt you, do you think that based on what you've said, perhaps European schools should start teaching more about Chinese culture and Chinese language? Do you think that would be good?
Well, I have started traveling in China 30 years ago, something like 30 years ago.
Right.
And of course, I know very, very little, too little. I try to learn, but I know too little. But the same applies, I mean, to India. I mean, India is also a place we know very little about. In schools, we learn history of Italy, maybe a little bit of Europe, but I have been reading in recent years nice books that reverse the point of view, not the European point of view, but the Asian point of view. You know? And it's enlightening. I mean, it's something that I enjoy very much, but I would need another couple of lives to learn.
So let me ask you, as we get towards the end of and I'm going to, if you don't mind, take 3 or 4 extra minutes from you because we lost a little bit in the connection business. But if you were giving advice to your peers in the European Union about negotiations like the one you just had, what are a couple of the most important things you would tell them? I mean, you've mentioned one, which is the Chinese companies come really well prepared. What is there something else that you would advise them?
I would advise, first of all, to be very patient. Because the perspective is different. The Chinese perspective is, for sure, this I can feel really, is long-term perspective, not the short-term perspective we are used in the Western world. I would suggest that you have to let them get comfortable also with the business environment they are investing in, because they also know that they know very little and are afraid to get into something they cannot manage anymore. So the business environment, legal system, and all the rest, which is so important for the business environment, is something you have to let them understand carefully.
Right.
This, I would say, is the 2 things which come to my mind first.
Do you find, for one of the points that you just made, that they come well prepared also from the legal side into this negotiation, because China's law, business law, and so on is not precisely the same as I understand it? Did you find them legally well prepared? They understand the contract.
Yes, but I don't share your view that their legal system is not well developed. I have had dealings with the Maritime Court in Shanghai, and I have been very much impressed by the knowledge of the judges and the way they run a court case, you know. So I'm not really, I don't share very much your view that they have a different system, maybe, but they are not unprepared. And I personally know also some. I have some friends who are lawyers in China, and they have a good understanding of.
Sure. Well, I'm honored to be incorrect on this. I'm glad you pointed that out. And as we head
It's my
into
experience. I don't know if it's true. It's my experience.
well, you're highly experienced. So, but let me ask you, Francesco, I want in the 2-3 minutes that we have left, I would like to take a very personal viewpoint and ask you, what have you learned from this experience? And just a very personal kind of a question.
Well, I have personally had the privilege to know various parts of the world, and have my business, which is really international. And I think, the better you know people, spend time with people from other regions in the world.
Yes.
The more you understand that some how can I say, some ideas about other cultures are
Yes.
really not
The perspective.
Yes. I mean, we are people of this world, and I mean having the privilege to know people from other parts of the world shows you that a lot of things you get from the news or from the press is really something that you should consider carefully before believing, So it has been, and it is constantly for me to have the opportunity to meet and negotiate with people from other parts of the world, a constant process of learning that we can live together without necessarily fighting, if I may say.
Well, Mr. Francesco Stanislao Parisi, it has been a great honor for all of us listening in, viewers, and for me personally, for you to give all of this time from what I know is an exceedingly, exceedingly busy time for you. So let me bid you goodbye. Let me say thank you very much, and I hope we get to talk soon.
Thank you, Sarwar.